friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley Aireonna, joined by the wonderful Tom Jensen. Hi Tom, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Ashley. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I appreciate you letting me talk your ear off. For anyone wondering why we started a little bit late, I had a lot of venting to do, and Tom was giving me a helpful ear, so I appreciate it.
Sure.
But it's so interesting. Like, I kind of felt like there wasn't a lot to talk about. And then, so last night I started writing some topics and I ended up sending you like 8 of them.
Right.
So apparently I could think of a lot to ramble about, which isn't surprising for me. But I will say this morning we got, not news because we've known it's happening, but we got a trailer for Netflix's Receiver, which Deebo Samuel and George Kittle are going to be out. Did you see the trailer for that? And are you going to be watching? For anyone who doesn't know, it's coming out on Netflix July 10th. Also, if you're on your parents' Netflix account and you don't know, because I didn't yet, they now don't let you do that thing unless you're in the same house, which does make me want to scream. But besides that.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Like if you're all on the same password?
I've never had Netflix. I'm too poor.
Okay. Well, you would have benefited from the thing I'm talking about and the thing that they stopped then, which is I'll give a shout out, and we're gonna talk probably at the end of our show about fathers. I'm gonna talk about my wonderful dad, Leroy. I love him. And then yesterday was actually the day that my best friend's father passed away, Jim, and yesterday last year. Sorry. So it's been a year, but when talking about Netflix, I was on Jim's Netflix account forever. Me, Lacey, his actual daughter, his other daughter, Katie, Jim, and Katie's husband. All of us, by the way, who lived in different places, were using Jim's Netflix a year after his passing. And it just, like 3 years ago, Netflix came out and they were like, we're going to stop it. So, like, it has to be hooked up to your IP address. And it got so much backlash, which is reasonable, because people were like, well, what if you like travel or you're going on a vacation or something? Like,
but they were trying to stop stuff like what you were pulling.
Yeah, and so
5 different people in 5 spots on one account.
Yeah, so I don't know. I guess like 3 years ago they announced it, that they were going to do it, and they got so much backlash that they kind of held off on it, but they just recently actually implemented it. Because I was telling my friend when I was on the phone today, I was like, oh, like, I have to figure out what Netflix to use, because I was telling her about the show Receiver dropping, and she was like, oh, like, I'd give you mine, but they finally installed that, so everyone has to get their own. So I guess I'm going to have to get a Netflix account to watch this. But did you watch the trailer?
No, I haven't seen anything of it.
It's on Twitter.
I think it's going to be out of the dark, out of the loop, in the dark, whole bit. I don't know.
I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be a little bit heart pulling, because they follow Justin Jefferson, I can't say that, St. Brown.
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
That St. Brown, George Kittle, and Deebo Samuel. And obviously George Kittle and Deebo Samuel, I think, will end up getting the most screen time, because as the episodes go on, certain teams stop playing, and it's covering last season. So it's going to show the Super Bowl and that crushing loss. Kind of the trailer ended with like the confetti falling on a sad Deebo Samuel. So not ready to relive that heartbreak. But
that's one episode I would miss.
I'm excited.
Here's the final episode with the Niners in the Super Bowl. Click. I'm not watching that.
I will say I'm excited to see like the preparation, if that makes sense. It goes into the game.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how much. I imagine that, because so I heard someone say, like, are we going to see a drunk Kyle Shanahan like at the Super Bowl? I imagine that there's certain things that are like off limits. You know what I mean? I don't think there's
there's stuff that the team wouldn't want them to show.
Yeah,
but it's a question of who's producing it and what'll they do.
Exactly. But I am excited about it, so I just thought I would alert people to that, because I saw that they were filming it like a year or so ago, but then I never heard updates on if it came out or what was happening. And then I saw that trailer drop and people reacting today. So it's July 10th, and I'm no longer going to be able to use Jim's Netflix. So I guess I got to get on that and really be an adult for the first time and buy my own.
Bummer.
So I'm gonna wait till July because then I'm gonna cancel it. Can you do that, or is it like, you know how if you like wanted to rent an apartment,
where
you have
they
to pay
get you
first?
like 30 days free kind of thing?
Yeah, I was wondering if it would be like, I feel like if you sign up for a new gym or if you have to rent an apartment, they make you do like first and last month's rent. So I was like, oh, I'm just gonna wait till July and like just pay for July so I can watch it, but who knows? But I will say one of our topics is Trent Williams, and Jesus beat us to the punch and is already up in the comments and says Trent does deserve to earn an overpay of $30 million a year. Now, I will say I feel like overpay makes me feel like bad. Does deserve makes me feel like good. So I'm a little bit confused by if you want him to earn 30 million or not, Jose. But have you heard the conversation, which I think has been a little bit blown up out of proportion? Because if you go back to Jeremy Fowler, he said that Trent Williams might, keyword might, want a contract extension at some point, which is,
he
I
said
think, what
as
everyone
much.
ever feels.
Yeah. Well, Trent has said that, I want to keep playing as long as the Niners are willing to have me. So given that quote, and that's from him directly, then you follow that and say that given what they did with Christian McCaffrey, it makes sense for Trent to say, I've done the same things for this organization as a player, as a leader, and therefore I deserve to get guaranteed money, everything that's not guaranteed yet through my existing deal, guarantee it, and then extend me a year or two and have a buyout clause. I think that that'll get done. I think that Kyle values Trent highly, and he should, because he's one of the best tackles in the league. He's the key to the Niners' offensive line, and he's a very rare player in terms of what he can do. So even if Trent declines with age, he's still probably going to be one of the top 5 tackles in the league. So he's earned that money.
He's all the way up here, so if you fall a little bit, you're still very high.
Right, and so Shanahan is saying that's worth keeping, and I would expect that that's what he's going to do. So, Fowler has said that this is what other teams think. This is not what Trent has said or his agent. But based on what Trent has said and based on what the Niners did with McCaffrey, I think it makes sense that Trent and George Kittle and Fred Warner will all ask for extensions based on what happened with McCaffrey.
I don't know if you saw the state of the franchise. They released it like 2 days ago on YouTube, and the guy who, I think it was Greg Papa, he was talking. George Kittle was one of the players that they invited there to speak, and Greg Papa was talking about the extension that they just gave to Christian McCaffrey. And he looks up at George Kittle and he's like, I'm sure, they're going to do something like that to you or franchise tag you the next year. And it was just this awkward little second where like George Kittle kind of looked at him.
Yeah, Kittle's just...
Like, they skipped over it. Like they didn't, but I was like, it was so weird to just say that to George Kittle's face. And you could kind of see he like looked over at him and he was like,
yeah, dude, where are you going with this?
Yeah.
This is my money, not yours. Don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And I don't blame Kittle for having that reaction at all. That's what he should do. That's just completely inappropriate for
on a franchise side. It was just like a weird thing to, like, it felt unnecessary, like just like an unnecessary. Sometimes I think when you're trying to transition between topics and like get someone else involved, you maybe like say something. And I think that's what he was doing because he wanted George Kittle to like speak now. But instead of just being like, and what is your opinion? He was like, kind of did this little tie-in, and George Kittle looked at him and he was like, excuse me, I don't want to play on the franchise tag. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, Papa was trying to ingratiate himself to Kittle and then to get Kittle to talk. And that's not the way to go about it. That's just a bad call.
No, I think it had the opposite effect. I just from, like I said, it was 0.5 seconds, but George Kittle's look on his face. What the hell? But so are you of the opinion that they will extend or at least guarantee some of the money that Trent Williams already has on his contract this before like this season starts, or
Oh,
you think
before
it'll
this season, probably not. I think that this is something they can take care of next summer.
I agree with that.
But I still think that they will do it, though.
Okay. See, I find that interesting because I'm like I feel like more okay with that than anything. One, because I do think we should, the 49ers should see another year of Trent Williams. He's consistently missed like one or not one, 2 to 3
3.
games, right? The last couple years. So you want to make sure that there's not some crazy drop off where he starts missing, 6 or something games.
Or a major injury where it
Yeah,
puts
major
his
injury
career into question. Yeah.
with age because he is under contract. It's just the guaranteed money, which I
Right.
understand from Trent's perspective. It's like if I get hurt, I want to make sure I'm going to get that. But then from like a team building perspective, it's kind of I feel like they're in the perfect situation where you play good, you're going to earn 30 million. Something happens, you can't
Yeah, yeah,
like
but
we don't have to.
that's a fan talking. It's not really realistic in saying that I've earned my money. I'm the best tackle in the league. I've been the best tackle in the league every year I've played for you. You gave McCaffrey an extension beyond what you should, according to NFL conventional wisdom, where it's you're paying him after he's 30. And now, my turn, same thing. I've been a cornerstone of this team. I've done everything asked. I'm a leader on and off the field. I deserve this. But I don't think that they need to do it immediately because he's still got 3 years. So I would expect that next summer they get to it. And then they guarantee the 2 years remaining. And then they talk an extension. And as long as Trent doesn't have a major injury or have something where just a total drop off, I would expect that they will extend him. And it's a decent gamble to make because he's still going to be a great player.
I agree with that. Like I think that even if he's falls a little bit from what he's at, that he's still so above the average offensive lineman that having him on your team is a good idea. I don't really see a problem with guaranteeing what he has left on his contract. Like I said, I would still be open-minded to how he performs this season before thinking about adding, is it age 39, age 40, that if you added 2 years, he'd be
Right.
40 on his last year. So, I mean, I know that offensive linemen can play until they're a little bit older, but we've seen multiple problems with Trent Williams' ankles and obviously planting firmly in the ground and then pushing off. Like those ankles are important. So I don't know how thrilled I'd be on giving him guaranteed money when it comes to adding years onto his deal. But I do know that if he's able to, Kyle Shanahan will value keeping him around as much as possible. But as far as what Jesus was saying, I agree that he's earned the money that he's been given, but it's also not like the 49ers are underpaying him. He was originally the top paid offensive lineman.
Tackle
Now
in
I
the
think
league.
he's number 3, right? Or number 2?
Yeah, for offensive line overall, I think so. I think now that Penei Sewell signed his deal that he gets a little bit more. But Trent is still one of the top 5 linemen and top 5 paid. And we'll see. Your dad is saying, why have any contracts anymore? No one sticks with it the whole time through. Everybody's going to leverage their situation. It's, I equate it to when they did what they did with McCaffrey. It's the equivalent of Kyle ringing the dinner triangle and saying, come and get it. And now we're going to see exactly that. It's Trent Williams, Kittle, Fred Warner, all of them team leaders, captains, all of them can make the same argument McCaffrey did. And so they're going to expect the same treatment. I get what you're saying, though. It's just, why can't we have contracts honored? What's the point of even having them? I get that argument. But players are always going to leverage their situation to their advantage to get more. It's just the way the NFL works. And the NFL, typically, the player doesn't even get to the second contract. So when you're an all-pro, you get some leverage like that. You get to do this sort of thing. And so it's a good problem to have for a team in that, contracts aren't going to mean as much when you're constantly ripping them up. But it's the contract of an all-pro. It's the contract of the offensive player of the year. It's guys that really contribute. So you take that trade-off if you're the Niners.
And just from a player perspective, like I do understand them wanting to leverage it because I had this thought too, like, do contracts even matter anymore? But not just because players are asking for restructuring for their contract and more money, but I mean, the team will do the same thing. And I think that that's why it's important to support players trying to get as much money as possible, because when there is a situation where there's an injury or a dip in play, if there's not guarantees, you know that team's going to cut you and not, they're also not going to value the integrity of your contract, and they're going to try to get out of it too, which we've seen. Like, this same criticism can go to Eric Armstead, right? Like, they guaranteed him a ton of money at the end of his deal, but they decided that they'd rather just bite it and move on from him. So this isn't just a player thing. Teams and players both don't, honor the entirety of their contract.
Both sides will play that game. Yeah.
I think at this point, contracts are almost structured that way as a way to manipulate the salary cap. Like, when you look at Tyreek Hill, he is like, isn't it like 18 or 20 something? Maybe it's in the 20s million every year. But then at the very end, he has like a $60 million year. And it's like, everyone and their mother can look at that. It's not guaranteed. Everyone and their mother can look at that and say, hey, the Dolphins aren't going to do that. They're either going to extend him and put that out throughout the years, or they're going to cut him or whatever. Like, they're not paying $60 million for one player.
It's not real. It's just a way of manipulating the cap to backload it so that you can get a lower cap hit initially.
Yeah. Which, honestly, like, that's more of a critique maybe of just the salary cap happening. You know what I mean? Like, teams have to get creative, and you can't really blame teams that have good front offices and can manipulate that. You want your team, whatever team you're a fan of, you hope that they can manipulate that salary cap and get as much talent on their team, as possible for as long as possible. So I understand that the contracts are kind of frustrating in that way, that you're like, every year it's like, okay, some sort of drama with signing someone. And like you said, we weren't even really expecting Christian McCaffrey to be a problem. Now he's getting paid, and I'm glad that you don't think Trent Williams is going to get signed this year, because I think if he did, that would really piss off Brandon Ayuk, because he's just like, how many guys are going to get signed before me, dude? So the contracts, I see the criticism of it, but I think it's should be more a reflection of the NFL and the salary cap in general versus like getting mad at players. And Corey, we're talking right now about NFL contracts and Trent Williams, kind of, but we're going to transition soon. But that was what we were talking about. I'm glad that you joined. I also wanted to say hi to Daniel. He's in here like every single time I stream saying happy whatever day it is. So hope you guys are having a great one. And then Tom needs a new deal. I agree. Tom's an all-star. Oh, except for Tom might have froze. Did Tom freeze? How funny would it be if I said Tom's an all-star and then he froze? Hey now, I'm an all-star. Get your game on and play. This is like Tom holding out. What Brandon Ayuk is doing is what Tom is doing right now. Should I remove him and try to bring him back on, or should we just? This is my fault because we were supposed to start at 3, but then we ended up chatting for like 30 minutes backstage, and I think the later that you stream with Tom, the worse his Wi-Fi gets, because he lives in an apartment. He told me this one time. Oh, Tom's back. Tom,
thanks, man.
Were you able to hear all that?
My gerbils are not. They need to be watered so that I can get my internet back.
Did you hear? Niner Gang literally said Tom needs a new deal, and I was like, Tom needs a new deal, and then he said Tom is underpaid, and then you froze, and I said, this is Tom holding out. You're pulling a Brandon Ayuk.
Oh, that was great. Nice, Ashley. Sorry about that. It's
we got him back.
Does this sometimes.
I slipped it under the computer. I slipped some extra cash for you secretly.
There you go. I appreciate it.
So he's back with a vengeance. Trent Williams, Corey, wanting to add on to the topic that we were just talking about. I would not extend Trent Williams. I'd guarantee his remaining years. That's also what I said. But then
that's what we said about McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And it's what you should do. It's what the fan would want, but it's not realistic, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I thought you made a good point with Kyle, like if Trent is able to play, his worsening play, his older age play is still going to be better than the average offensive lineman. So
Right.
maybe actually keeping him beyond those years might not be a horrible problem. But I am glad, or I am hopeful that they wait at least another year to make sure there's not some stark drop off. And I definitely, if I did add years to his contract, and this is where there might be a hiccup, I wouldn't make those years like top 5 O lineman money. And that might be a problem for Trent Williams because he might be
Could
like,
be.
well, this is, the standard I have for myself. And it's like, yeah, but at age 40, no,
Right. Yeah, I think that needs to be done. Whether Trent would be willing to do it or not, I don't know. The other thing is you would need to have a buyout clause like they have with McCaffrey. That
Okay,
they can pay McCaffrey $8.5 million to get out of the deal in 2 years.
See, I like that.
And you would need to do the same thing with Trent. And you need to do it with Kittle and Fred as well. That you need to give yourself the option, especially with the injury risk, that a player could have a devastating injury and not be the same guy. And that's where you need a buyout clause in case, unfortunately, something like that would hit.
Yeah, I wonder if all the players would say that or would sign that. I feel like that's kind of a team friendly thing that
well, they're still getting money though. It's McCaffrey's getting $8.5 million if they want out of the deal. I don't think they would, but I think that that's there just in case.
I like having that buyout though. I think that makes me feel way more comfortable with that extension because, like, I think $8 million isn't nothing, but it's not horrible if there's something detrimental and you want to move off a player. I'd re-sign him at the end of his contract if he's still playing well. That I agree. I would guarantee the money he has left and then add on to it. Now, are the 49ers going to move that way? I
think they would with Trent, but we'll see what they do with everybody else. But I think that it's the same boat, that Trent, Kittle, and Fred can all make the exact same argument McCaffrey did, and they should all get the exact same treatment.
I agree. I would say I'm really glad. I hope that all of them. This is oddly going to be a big year for all these players. Like for Brock Purdy, are you worth $50 to $60 million? And then for George Kittle, like coming off a surgery, he's probably had his best, most revitalized time under Brock Purdy, but he still has really struggled with injury in his later years. So this is, I think, we're kind of going to find out, like, is he going to have more of a Kelsey career where into his 30s he's still playing at a high level, or is age going to catch up with him injury wise? I do think, because in college he was a receiver, and I think he has naturally a little bit of a smaller frame, so the weight that he has to keep on him to keep up with his blocking and being the star tight end that we see him, I think it can be a little bit taxing on his body, especially we've seen a lot of lower body. I know his surgery was on his core and he has a shoulder. What I'm saying in that one little jumble I just said is he's had a lot of injuries. And so before adding on to his contract, much like Trent Williams, I would want to much like Christian McCaffrey, I'd want to have an out, and I would want to be careful about paying him top market. And with all these players, it goes back to how they see themselves is still going to be top market, and the understanding that, yes, you've been a star player and you're still probably above average, but no, you're not worth it in the same way that you would be if you're 24,
Right. It's you're an all-pro and you're getting paid for it now. But when you're in your 30s or later, Kittle is already in his 30s. And so if you extended him, now you're talking about his early to mid 30s. You can't pay him the same money you are now when he's an all-pro. Because the chances are he's not going to be able to produce at that same level.
Yes. And I want to say, hi, what's up? Thank you so much. And Jesus wrote this 2 times, so I feel like we should answer it. Lenore, Dre, Banks, Moody is about to ask for at least $20 million. I don't think so.
I don't know about all of those players. I think some of them would.
I would say with Lenore, the question for the 49ers is going to be, and this is interesting, right? Like in his most recent, I think it was, press conference, Kyle Shanahan was asked about wanting to extend Charvarius Ward and Deommodore Lenoir. He was like, yes, I really want to keep both of those guys, which, of course, every team wants to keep all their good players. The 49ers, in my opinion, are going to have to decide between Deommodore Lenoir and Charvarius Ward, I think, when it comes to extending them, because they both have outplayed their deals that they're on now. So I think they're going to want more. So, and then the 49ers have also drafted secondary players. Like, I just don't think paying them both is going to be what's going to happen. So it'll be interesting to me. I was originally shocked that the 49ers didn't try to extend Lenoir this offseason, because I'm under the impression that he could have an even better season next year and then want
I
way
think so
more.
too.
Now, maybe he's betting on himself. We don't know. Maybe they did
Could
try.
be.
No. I don't think Dre is going to ask for that just because he's coming off an injury. And that sucks for him. He was already on a really team-friendly deal. The 49ers signed him like 1 year before he had like just that really breakout season, in my opinion. Unfortunately, I don't know if he'll stay with the 49ers, but I don't think they're going to be giving him that money. And then Moody, meaning Jake Moody?
No, I think he meant Mooney Ward.
Oh, Mooney Ward.
Yeah, because who's going to pay Jake Moody?
Yeah, I was like,
no, I'm not doing that. But yeah, you look at the list and you say, okay, Mooney Ward could ask for that because that'd be market value, would be around 20 for a number one corner. But he's 28, 29, and I think that'd be a risk. The guy that I would want to keep is Deommodore Lenoir. I think that he's part of the future. Is that I want to see a secondary of Lenoir and Renardo Green on the outside and Jair and Malik Mustafa at safety. That's what I want to see going forward.
Yeah, when we said we've talked about like one of the reasons extending Ayuk makes sense is he's a little bit younger and kind of on the ascension. With Mooney Ward, I do think he's, he obviously had his best season of his career so far last year, but now he's coming off off-season surgery. And yes, gonna be in his 30s pretty soon. And as a cornerback, we've seen
there's always a drop off at corner. And you have to take advantage of the fact that you've got depth for the first time in the secondary in a long time in this team. You got a lot of players at DB. Take advantage of it. I would not keep Mooney Ward. Good as he is, I think that he'll start to fall off. And I think that what you want to do is to have Lenoir as the guy that you invest in as your outside primary DB. And then give Renardo Green the opportunity, and maybe he can take number one in another year or so and see what that can do. But I think that it's going to have to be a source of savings for them, that they're going to have to let Ward and Hufanga go. And unfortunately, probably Aaron Banks too, because he'll be priced out and they won't be able to afford that.
That'll be hard. Maybe this conversation, just because I think we're kind of jumping through comments right now, but this brings up a topic that you and I discussed prior. I thought maybe we could talk about 3 to 5 players that we're excited to watch this year. It doesn't have to just be rookies, but when we were just responding to that comment, JD talked about too many young cornerbacks. So I know that I told you it doesn't have to be rookies, but I did want to say one of my guys is Green. We heard nothing but good reports from him from all the OTAs and mandatory minicamp so far. Now, and even going against Ricky, we heard good things about him. Now, I did hear he was a little bit handsy, and it'll be interesting to see how that translates in the NFL. We've seen guys like Sauce Gardner kind of get away with it and be able to be a little bit more physical. And then we've also seen that, I'm thinking about the Eagles wide secondary player right now, and I'm blanking on his name. The one that got in a fight with Deebo Samuel. Do you know who I'm talking? Bradbury.
Oh, yeah.
He is also kind of a handsy player, but one that seems to always get called. So it'll be interesting to see how Green can translate to the NFL. He is someone that I'm going to have my eye on when it comes to training camp and practicing with more of the starting wide receivers, if he can catch up. So before we even get to the season, just is he going to be able to make a starting impact. We'll do 5, and I'm going to make him.
Okay.
I know that's kind of a cop out because it's a
No,
rookie.
that's fine. You want to do your 5, then I'll do mine.
Yeah, or so we don't have to. I thought Leonard Floyd. I think Leonard Floyd is going to be interesting.
He's going to be critical,
right? Like I think,
and apparently he's playing well, so that's a great thing.
Yes,
he's been very consistent. He gets 9 to 10 sacks every year, despite his age.
Yeah,
he's got to keep doing that.
I mean, how many years have the 49ers been looking for a guy on the opposite side of Nick Bosa? That guy doesn't even have to be a star, but just a guy to get cleanup sacks, who's consistent. Unfortunately, like Drake Jackson, guys like that have just really failed at the ability to just take over that position, even when it's been laid out for them. So I feel like a lot of hype has been put on Leonard Floyd this offseason, and just in that it'll be interesting to see. I know he's older, so I originally had my doubts, but from the way that everyone's talked about him, there seems to be a lot of optimism around that. And with this 49ers team, if they can get back to a dominating front seven that has previously been the core of this team, it seems like the team has kind of transitioned to making other areas more important, but obviously there's never a problem with bolstering that line. And that'll be very, very helpful, especially going against, really elite quarterbacks this upcoming year, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, all that.
Yeah.
If the 49ers can have a dominant defense, which will go, more than just players, it goes all the way up to coaching. But I'm interested in seeing how Floyd turns out. So
so for him, just to respond to that, I think that Floyd's going to be the best defensive end bookend they've had since Dee Ford when he was healthy. That we need to remember just how good Leonard Floyd is, that he's still elite, and that he's somebody that can go get the quarterback. And I'm especially looking forward to how he does in the Rams games, because I think he'll be motivated for those. And the Rams have spent a ton of money on their offensive line. I want to see what Leonard Floyd can do against them. I think that's going to be key, because it's also going to be how you beat Stafford. So he's going to have to play well in those games, and I expect that he will. But I agree with you. He was one of my 5 that I think Leonard Floyd is going to be very important.
And I was going to say we can do like 5 total together if you want. So what do you want to give me 2 of yours?
Sure. So D. Winters, who Fred Warner has talked about, is playing really well at OTAs.
He was asked about someone else, right? And he
mentioned
brought
Winters
himself, which I think is notable.
Very. And Fred has done that in the past, where he's identified a player and said, this guy looks really good. And when he said that about Jair, and then look how Jair developed, I take a lot of good. I hope that D. Winters can be a great player. And he's going to need to be, because Devondre Campbell last year for the Packers was a liability. So if D. Winters can come up and be a star, that would be huge if he can step in. And it would also help them in simulated pressure, where they can have D. Winters playing every down, but also he can be a blitzer on third downs. That would really help what they want to do schematically.
Really quickly, we have JD says, great show with Coach Tom.
That was fun.
That was really good.
Coach is the best. Love that.
Yes, awesome. Did you listen to his impressions that he did? I saw that.
Those were hilarious.
So funny. So funny.
Oh man, I was dying.
How is Graham looking? Obviously
nobody said anything. We don't know.
Yeah.
Fred only mentioned Winters.
Hasn't stuck out. Now I'm going to say for one of mine with maybe not necessarily this year, but with training camp coming up, I'm going to be interested in seeing Jacob Cowing, because we've heard some reports about him really standing out, and Brock Purdy himself, like when you're talking about Fred Warner mentioning Winters, Brock Purdy, when prompted to talk about Ricky, himself ended up also bringing up Jacob Cowing. So I always find it interesting when players kind of advocate for someone themselves who wasn't necessarily called out upon. And then I love this Puni. It'll be very interesting to me if Puni is able to actually make an impact and be a starter this year. I don't think we'll figure that out really until training camp and even preseason, because with the offensive line, it's kind of hard to simulate that. But I know that we're at least getting him reps. I'll be interested to see how Puni ends up making an impact. But what do you think about those two players?
I think Puni will get an opportunity, and it's going to be Spencer Burford and Puni at right guard because Feliciano needs to move to center, though Ben Barch might be center as well, and then Feliciano would move back. But we'll see. If it's Spencer Burford versus Puni, I would expect that Puni wins that. And Puni does things that they want. He's playing out of position. He was a left guard at Kansas primarily, or left tackle as well. But I think that his ability in the run game can really help them. That they've had problems running right, and that Puni can help them in that area. So I want to see what he can do for that. For other players that I've got, another one would be for me is Jair Brown. I think that he's going to break through. I think Jair's going to be big.
I was very excited by Jair Brown last year. And even he just spoke. It wasn't like the most recent time that they had players speak, but it was this offseason, maybe a month ago or even just a few weeks ago. And it's almost like he's carrying himself as a veteran now. Like he was talking about how
and his mindset
set a standard for the rookies and what he wanted to do. And I was so impressed because obviously he's only a second-year player, but you can really tell he takes the game seriously. And I thought not only did he do a good job at having an eye for the ball last year, obviously he had his fair share of rookie mistakes, but in those same games he was also making impact plays, and you really saw him learning on the job, and in my opinion doing more good than bad. And I don't think Kyle Shanahan would have kept him out there if that wasn't the case. I'm glad that I'm not glad for injury, but I'm glad that he got his opportunity, and in my opinion, earn the right to be a starter again this year.
Yeah,
and we'll see that continue obviously in training camp. But
sure. And Mr. Corey says Puni is Banks' long-term replacement. I agree that as of next year, Puni will be the starter at left guard. They'll let Banks go because they can't afford to keep him. Mitchell and Ness asked earlier in the chat about Cody Schrader. I think he's got an opportunity, but he's not going to have as many opportunities as, say, Elijah Mitchell, because Kyle has ultimate trust in Mitchell since he doesn't fumble. So how many opportunities will Schrader get to prove what he can do? Because in the past, Jordan Mason proved himself, but he had a fumble, and therefore persona non grata didn't get that many touches. What'll happen with Schrader? If he protects the ball and does well in his carries, he'll have a chance at the very least to make the practice squad. I think he will be a practice squad member. Whether he makes the 53 will depend, I think, on Elijah Mitchell. Is he healthy? Does he look good? Because I think Jordan Mason is a more talented back, that he should be their number 2. And then number 3, we'll see. For Isaac Garendo, I think that he's just the designated kick returner. I don't think he's going to be much of a running back.
Yeah.
So Schrader's got a chance. We'll see what he can do.
Sounds like that even from his performance. Apparently he had already fumbled the ball in one of the early practices that they had, or OTA practices that they had. Then really quickly addressing the comments, someone says, then who is the replacement for right guard? I think when talking about Banks' replacement. I think this is why Tom and I advocated that they get an offensive lineman this year, because there's going to be a lot of questions in the upcoming years with the offensive line.
So who starts at right guard next year if Purdy goes left? Probably a draft pick. Could be 4th round, 5th round. Somebody that could step in and have an opportunity there. But they're going to have to see, does Spencer Burford respond to the opportunity? Because he's going to run out of opportunities eventually. You can't not seize upon what you're given. And if he doesn't come through, then he'll need to be let go. And they could say that maybe we use Feliciano as a plug-in for a year at right guard, and then the draft pick steps in. But I would expect that next year they'll have a draft pick who will be thought of as the heir apparent at right guard.
I agree. And I feel like this is a good transition into, I wanted to ask us to come up with 3 to 5 potential cuts post minicamp. So whether that's before the new year starts or into training camp, do you have any players in mind? I thought I would start
Yeah.
off, and these are more hypotheticals. I think all the guys that I've written down will actually or most of them will actually probably make the team but stay on as depth, or even end up being practice squad guys. But some of the guys that I have started, and I'm going to start with the guy you mentioned, was Elijah Mitchell. I just think that Jordan Mason he was getting RB1 reps during OTAs and some of mandatory minicamp. I thought that was noticeable. Elijah Mitchell has only played 27 games in the last 3 seasons. Obviously, he's one of Kyle's favorites. I remember last year, one of the reporters asked basically why Elijah Mitchell was getting touches over Jordan Mason. And one of the only games ever that Kyle sat Christian McCaffrey for a half, almost in response to that reporter, Elijah Mitchell got all of the carries after that. But unfortunately, stuff like that can't happen often.
Yeah.
Even though I will say, like, when he's playing and able to play, he's been incredible. His rookie season, he was really good. And he's definitely a Kyle Shanahan favorite, but it's just his body is unfortunately not allowing it. And with him being older and with, in my opinion, a more talented player sitting behind him, I could see, especially being like, think about the 49ers ended up getting something for, why Jordan Mason's name is in my mind, Jeff Wilson. So if there's some way for the 49ers to get anything for Elijah Mitchell, I could see that happening. Like I said, I have a hard time saying that because I know he's such a Shanahan favorite. And I also don't know if another team's going to trade for him. I think that Wilson thing was pretty particular to that offseason, more Mike McDaniel trying to instill his system there in Miami. But do you think that Elijah Mitchell is a good potential, cut candidate?
Cut, yes. Trade, no. I think that every fan's favorite trade is Elijah Mitchell for a draft pick. And I just shake my head and say, and they would do that. Why? You just said he's played 27 games and he's fading. Oh, we can get a draft pick from him. No, you can't. It's just, we'll see what he can do. But I think he'll stay on the team just because Kyle will be Kyle. He'll say that, I trust Elijah Mitchell. He doesn't fumble, and therefore he's going to stay on this team. Yes, but it's up to Cody Schrader. If Schrader outplays him and plays really well, then he can bump him. I don't think that Mitchell has firm footing on the 53. He could go. I don't think he can be traded at all, but I think that he could be cut.
To watch in training camp for sure, I think.
Yeah.
I have really quickly, we got Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason. I'm crossing my fingers Kyle Shanahan isn't insane and doesn't trade him or move off of, cut him, whatever. So we have those two. Isaac Guerrero isn't going to go anywhere. They just drafted him. So that's 3. They usually count Juice as a running back. So didn't they normally carry 5 running backs?
Yeah. So Juice will be one of those backs. And then the other one is Elijah Mitchell or Cody Schrader.
Okay. So yeah, that fifth, running back is going to be an interesting one to watch. I like that competition. I'm gonna talk about one other player, and then we can go to some of the guys you have written down. I just think Cameron Latu. Now, my immediate pushback on this is there's just not a lot of tight end talent on the team right now, and I feel like maybe they're a little bit desperate in that area. But if Cameron Latu is still injured, I mean, there's just no reason for him to be on the team.
At that point, you have to move on.
Yeah, Braden Willis apparently did really well in mandatory minicamp. They signed Logan Thomas. Obviously, those guys, even if they do good, they're not like stars. But if Cameron Latu is just still injured, they're not going to keep him around for a whole nother year. If he's not going to play, that just doesn't make sense. It's just a wasted roster spot at that point. So this training camp is going to be important for Latu. If he wants to make it on the team, he's going to have to stand out in a good way. And from how he did, because once again, it's not just injury. It's when he was healthy, he performed really poorly. according to all reports. So he's going to have to be healthy and somehow get a lot better.
And contribute, yeah. And that's a high bar for him. So, yeah, he's in a do or die, and we'll see. Mr. Corey says Cam Latu should have been DeJuan Jones. Yeah. The problem is that DeJuan Jones is the kind of tackle that Kyle won't take because he's so big. Kyle wants movement in his tackles because of the outside zone run game. Therefore, he never would have even considered DeJuan Jones. Mm-hmm. And now you look at how DeJuan Jones is playing. Oops. And so that's what happens when you get too connected to a skill set profile where you say he's got to be X height, Y weight, not over. And DeJuan Jones was over, but he can play. So there we are. Burford, it's here you go. This is your chance, dude. Do or die. On my cuts, Ambry. Sam Womack, I think he's in danger. There's a lot of depth at DB. Ronnie Bell, now that they've got a punt returner, do they need Ronnie Bell? Not really. And drafting 2 receivers, Jacob Cowing does what Ronnie Bell does. You don't need Ronnie Bell anymore. Danny Gray, apparently he's playing better, but we'll see. I think that Kyle has kind of made up his mind on Danny Gray. Drake Jackson is another one that I think they could move on from just because he hasn't shown anything. Robert Beal Jr. is another one that's a question mark. And then Latu.
I thought this was funny, and that is why Shanahan is more of an offensive coordinator than head coach. I giggled at that. I agreed. Sam Womack, this is the deepest the secondary's ever been under the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch era, which I am not complaining about. I remember when they had to call up now I'm forgetting his name. What was he always got in fights and he was like never. How am I missing it? 2 years ago, there was no secondary players. They had to call.
Oh, well, they had to bring in.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but it is a street free agent who they, like Dante Johnson, who they'd always bring in.
Like older and everything.
But it was an older DB that didn't play well.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But
fortunately, this year that won't be a problem. That they should be able to keep everybody. But I do think, and I said this with my coach, with my broadcast with Coach yesterday, I think that there's a possibility that they keep one more DB than they normally do because it's so deep.
Yeah, because they have Renardo Green. They signed Isaac Yadam. Do you think he'll end up making the team?
Yeah.
Him. Darnell Luter, he made some good plays last year. Yeah, obviously Norman.
Yeah, Josh Norman.
That was hilarious. Having him on the team was a fever dream. He was just doing whatever the hell he wanted. He wasn't actually he was just freestyling the whole time.
Yeah,
it was honestly kind of hilarious.
He was the NFL version of a hockey goon, basically. No,
yeah, but we're
not going to help. Anyway, there's a lot of guys in the secondary. I think that they need to add one more DB.
So do you
because
think
otherwise, there's too many DBs that get hurt, and they always bring some guy off the street, and they play him right away, and he's not that good. Do you
think that
you've got so many DBs?
5 or 6?
I don't know. I have to go back and look at what they've done in previous years. I think it's 4 DBs and 4 safeties, so it's 8 overall, and maybe this year they carry 9. We'll see.
Ooh, that'd be a big jump. And then I was going to say, I had written down, but I put a little question mark next to his name, Drake Jackson. The reason I put question mark is I don't think they'd actually cut him. He's probably just going to be backup level right now. But I don't know. He's injured.
It depends. What does he show? Does he show anything? He needs a specialization. Part of the problem for Drake was that USC constantly moved him around. They said, lose weight, gain weight, go here, go there. They changed his role. They changed his weight. They changed everything constantly. It's just this gear shifting so much that they wrecked the car. And so for Drake, it's Now you have to be a specialist in some area. And if he doesn't show any level of specialization, he's in danger of getting cut. He could get cut.
The interesting thing about him is like he is still pretty young. He's 23, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
With him being, is this his third year? His third year. Still, there's guys who most of the who were just signed that are like that age right now. So
Yeah.
it is one of those things that maybe he could totally turn it around this year. But they have Leonard Floyd, Gross Matos. I don't know.
The two defensive tackles, it's just
Robert Beal.
So it'll come down to, does Beal do anything? Does Drake do anything? They need the depth. They need these guys to play. They don't want to cut them, but you have to show something. And to this point, Drake hasn't shown it.
I would still give Drake Jackson a good look. He's athletic and wasn't really 100% this year.
Yeah,
or last
and they
year.
will.
Yeah. I mean, he's 6'4", 273 pounds, maybe more, maybe less, because I know he kind of rotates between there. But that will be interesting. I don't think Brendel's going to get cut anytime soon, no matter what.
It depends on his injury. We don't really have the specifics on how hurt he is.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I hope Kalia can stay healthy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always a shame when you know that people have potential, but they're really just held back by injury. So you never actually get to see the fullness of them, because not only like does injury keep you off the field, but it keeps you from practicing and like growing on your skill set and improving, your negative habits. Like instead you're only focused on just rehabbing. So that'll be.
It's very tough. And Kalia's under the gun on that front because he's been hurt. He came into the league basically as an automatic IR because he wasn't healthy. So redshirt for a year due to health puts you way behind. It's tough.
Yeah.
But if he's healthy, he's got speed, he's got low leverage, he can play. It's just a question of, can he get to the health that he needs to and then up his game in technique so that he can get on the field. They need him. It's not a question of, we don't need you, we got enough guys. They don't. If there's one thing they need, it's D-line depth.
Definitely. Now, I think we might hard switch after talking about those players and what we're excited to look for and look out for this upcoming year in training camp. And we might talk about, do you want to go Chris Sims or Super Bowl hangover first?
Let's do Sims because we talked about that a little bit last time. So let's finish that up.
Okay. I thought that I had a funny little thing. Does Chris Sims hate Brock Purdy, Tom? I hate Chris Sims' discussion on Brock Purdy. Every time I hear him try to explain his take, it makes me so frustrated. I don't know why. I'm not even a Brock Purdy stan. Like, in the majority of conversations that I'm in, I feel like I'm a little more on the negative side than the positive side of Brock Purdy. But something in me, it's probably I think the way that Chris Sims has explained it is almost this, but opposite. Like, he hears so much praise of Brock Purdy, he feels like a strong need to like hit that down. And then I'm like the opposite. I hear like the strong negative takes about Brock Purdy, and I feel the need to like stand up for him in ways that I otherwise probably wouldn't. But he was Chris Sims, 17th ranked quarterback. The last time that we talked, his entire list wasn't out. Obviously, I'll just run through it really quick for anyone who hasn't seen it. But the guys that are ranked ahead of Brock Purdy, starting with number 1, no surprise, Patrick Mahomes.
Number as he
2,
should be.
Yes, I agree. Obviously, it should be like Patrick Mahomes
alone.
And then,
And then Patrick Mahomes is his own tier. And that's the way that I like to do this. Is I do it by tiers. I don't rank them. I just say that tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4.
I want to just as some like off-season content, do like a water taste ranking contest and like also do some of the. Have you tried any of the like healthy soda things that they have, like Poppy or all?
I haven't tried those yet. I want to. I'm gonna give it a shot.
They're good. But I wanna do like a tier thing with them. But Okay, so Patrick Mahomes, number 1. Number 2, Josh Allen. I'm pretty okay with that. People,
Yeah,
I
he's
think,
number 2.
yeah, people have a lot of negativity about Josh Allen. I think given his situation with his coach and offense that he's, been put in, I just raw talent. I think Josh Allen is incredible.
Yeah.
Number 3, Joe Burrow, for
Yeah.
which I can understand. He's definitely struggled a lot with injury, but when healthy, he's done well. And then number 4, Lamar Jackson, Ravens. Now, I think obviously very deserving of his MVPs that he's gotten so far, has really struggled in the postseason. And the
Right.
only reason I'm bringing that up is when we get to, we talked about this last week, but a lot of the negativity and the reason that Brock Purdy is so low, according to Chris Sims, is because of his Super Bowl performance. And when thinking about, or when critiquing Purdy so harshly for that, I do kind of side eye some of these things and just don't
Well,
understand.
Purdy's Super Bowl performance was tied to Kansas City having 9 unblocked pass rushers. They go hand in hand, Chris.
I agree.
Kind of hard to throw when you've got a defensive back coming down on you when you've taken 2 steps in your drop and he's already on top of you. I mean, and this is a criticism of Shanahan, is that over time you need to allow Brock to make the calls on protection.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do that because we've seen the results. We saw what Kansas City did when you had the center calling it. And that's part of the argument for Brendel didn't do well. And he had the opportunity of playing simulated pressure against Baltimore. Baltimore killed him. Kansas City killed him. There was no learning. There was no growth. That's a real red flag to me.
I don't want to get the name wrong. Former, Tom Walsh. Did you hear that interview that was on Grant Show?
Did.
And
Yeah.
he critiqued the 49ers and other teams who do this and don't have the protections being called by the quarterback. And he mentioned that this can be a big problem because I guess the centers can't see everything and might not know everything. So it's interesting that you specifically brought that up because I just heard that being talked about a couple days ago. And that's a former offensive coordinator, so you would think that he knows what he's talking about.
Kyle has to be willing to give up some control, and I think that Brock over time can take that.
Yes.
Kyle will develop more trust in Brock, and Brock has shown that he's got a tremendous knowledge base and poise, and he's capable of doing that. Give him the chance to do it. Because look at what Brock has done when you give him chances. He's succeeded.
Yeah. And then number 5, Chris Sims has Matthew Stafford from the Rams. I think he has, incredible arm talent, very, very tough.
Yeah.
Definitely struggled with injuries the last couple years, but I can see why he's there. Number 6, Justin Herbert. One of those things, once again, talent-wise and assumed potential-wise, totally makes sense. Now, have we seen all of that played out? Not necessarily so far.
No.
I'm really excited to see him under Harbaugh this year. The Chargers are going to be an interesting watch, in my opinion.
Harbaugh will give the offensive line a massive upgrade, and that's going to help Herbert a lot. But their receiving core is bad. And so I think that they're probably a year away where they're going to have the offensive line and then the wide receivers in next year's draft, and then they're going to take off.
Now, number 7 is CJ Stroud, Houston Texans. Part of me understands this, and part of me, I'm like, a lot of people's things with Brock Purdy is I have to see it for 1 more year. I need more evidence.
Yeah.
And with CJ Stroud, it's one of those things I totally get that he was an all-star last year and just, took no one expected the Texans to be what they were. And in some big games, he performed really admirably. But it is one of those things where I specifically might want to see it for another year before I put him at 7. I think that's pretty high.
Okay, well, I have him at 5, so I love him. I think he's that good. It's just you take his arm, his passing skills, his accuracy, deadly accurate, and a great leader that his team is responding to and advancing the team forward, instilling them with a lot of confidence. So, yeah, going into this year, I have C.J. Stroud as my number 5 QB. So I understand it. I think that Stroud has earned that in terms of his talent.
Okay. I understand that. I definitely do. And maybe I don't know if it's like side noting the conversation because I was gonna make it a little tab and then I ended up not. But freaking Robert Saleh is getting thrown under the bus about Aaron Rodgers not showing up, and so many people I never watched his like full show or anything, but I saw a clip on Twitter and it was Pat McAfee talking about the Aaron Rodgers not showing up to mandatory minicamp situation, and instead of critiquing Aaron Rodgers for not being there, he just talked about how horrible of a communicator Robert Saleh was and how the organization really needs to look into Saleh and what this says about him as a head coach, and how he's looking forward to hearing from Aaron and how Aaron feels about Saleh's comments, and that Robert Saleh really could have said this better to the media and made it a non-story, quote unquote. I feel so bad for Robert Saleh. He's looking
It's
at
not his
D'Amico
fault.
like, damn, it could have been like this.
No, it's not on Saleh. This is Aaron Rodgers being Aaron Rodgers. I'm a veteran. I'm 40. I don't want to show up to camp. I'm Aaron Rodgers. I don't need camp. I'm Aaron Rodgers. That's what this is. It's Aaron Rodgers' ego saying,
they were like,
I don't go to camp. You know who I am? I'm Aaron Rodgers. That's what this is. McAfee going to his aid. Of course he's going to, because Aaron Rodgers is on his show, and so they've got a relationship where Rodgers is paid. Of course McAfee's going to take Rodgers' side on that. But Robert Saleh getting sideswiped like this, he doesn't deserve any of this. All of this is Aaron Rodgers, all of it.
It's really messed up. I mean, it was the first like 2 minutes of a clip I saw, and they were just like, I was like, oh, Saleh's gonna be fired. Like, right, like I just
probably, but it won't be his fault though.
They had like a Jets insider talking about it, and same thing. No one was critiquing Aaron Rodgers. Everyone was just like, Robert Saleh could have handled this better. He should have had more tact. He knew what he was doing. Clearly, there's some vengeance on his side. Like, blah, blah, blah. How are they supposed to have a good organization with a coach talking about your quarterback like this? Like, saying, and I'm like, dude, it doesn't matter how nicely he says that. Your star quarterback doesn't show up and you think it's not going to be a story? Like, ridiculous.
Of course it is. Well, and why is he not? Yeah, go ahead.
It's totally acceptable for Robert Saleh to say that he's absent. He's literally absent. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, all he's doing is telling the truth.
Yeah.
But what it comes down to is just this: is there anything Robert Saleh could have done where Aaron Rodgers would have reported? No. So stop.
What they wanted Saleh
all
to
this
do,
crap. Stop it,
yeah.
people. No, it's Aaron Rodgers' ego.
Do you think, as long as Aaron Rodgers shows up for that week one, yeah. I mean, also I will say I did see when he was there. I saw a short video clip of his ankle / Achilles being wrapped up in some of the OTAs that he did show up to. So
yeah, so that could have been precautionary. They want to make sure that they're not re-injuring it. So I don't know why they wrapped it. If we didn't have details on that, we'll see. But yeah, Saleh's the D coordinator going forward. Maybe. Yeah, we'll see how Sorensen does. We'll see how it all plays out. But none of this is Saleh's fault. None of it.
No. But we'll get back to really quickly the list. I was just, when we were talking about CJ Stroud and D'Amico, it's just so interesting how much the quarterback, means to your team and how it's reflected on you as a head coach when you have that quarterback. And I will say, like, they've had bad quarterback situations there at the Jets, and some criticism, needs to go on Saleh for that. But I think the way that they're handling this specific situation is not how it should be. Number 8, Chris Sims has Dak Prescott. Now, obviously, he was really high in statistical category last year, up there with Brock Purdy, just in statistics, and has done very well for the Dallas Cowboys. Has choked in the playoffs, in my opinion. So
right. Well, and what Diamador Lenore after they beat the Cowboys at home in the playoffs, Dak's gonna Dak. Famous quote. And
Exactly.
Dak does Dak. And
So then,
he threw 2 picks. Yeah. How many playoff games have the Cowboys won under Dak Prescott? That's why this is too high a ranking for Dak Prescott.
I completely agree. And so then following him, Chris Sims has Jalen Hurts at number 9. Um, I thought Jalen Hurts did really good that 1 year.
Yeah.
And up until then was pretty mediocre. And since then has been just decent. And I think number 9 is too high, in my opinion.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Well, Jalen Hurts thrived under Shane Steichen. He was their offensive coordinator when they had the good year. And then Steichen got hired in Indy to be their head coach. And ever since Steichen left, Jalen Hurts has fallen off a cliff, which shows you that a lot of that is that Hurts was created by Steichen, who's one of the best quarterback coaches in the league. And that needs to be factored in. And the Niners figured out Jalen Hurts in a heartbeat. They just said, okay, all we have to do when he's out of containment and rushing is force him wide, and then he'll only throw to the near sideline. He won't throw to the middle. He won't throw across. He'll only throw what's in front of him. And that's how the Niners shut him down. And Philly did nothing. And it's because they figured him out. Part of that is losing Steichen in terms of Hurts development. Part of it is losing Steichen just in offensive play design and play calling. So a quarterback that's that dependent on his former offensive coordinator needs to be ranked lower.
I completely agree. Then number 10, Jared Goff. Jared Goff obviously just signed a giant contract, been to multiple Super Bowls, been to NFC Championship games. In my opinion, not mobile and not elite, but has shown an increase in leadership under Detroit and has done well under their OC for sure. Now, how well he does once he leaves will be a question mark, but I don't think maybe he's as bad as some people say. I also don't know if I would put him that far above Brock Purdy, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, I have him in
this. I think a lot of the critiques that Brock Purdy has could be applied to Jared Goff, so I find it kind of and I think Brock
in
Purdy
some areas. Yeah. I get it, but there's some people that will dismiss it and just say it's Jared Goff. He's not going to get anything done. And falls apart in games. He can. Though in the game against the Niners, it's a receiver not making a play on a ball that was thrown to him. That was really the key play of the game. That's not on Goff.
No.
I look at Goff in a couple of ways. Yeah. The key thing that's coming out of Detroit in this offseason is apparently Jameson Williams is a man on a mission, and he's going to be way better as a result. He's been injured. He's been tossed from games or banned because of gambling. And so now he's finally on a clean slate. He gives Goff the great, really fast, deep target that Detroit needs. And I think Goff is going to improve because Jameson Williams is finally what he's supposed to be. Lions are going to be a lot better, deeper because of that.
I feel like that's an underrated topic because like he, wasn't around his rookie year due to injury and then with the gambling stuff. I feel like maybe that storyline has kind of been forgotten. And then once the season starts, people are going to be like, oh, like we didn't realize. So you're right. I think that now, do you think I heard a content creator, 49ers content creator recently say that the Lions offense is obviously much better than the 49ers offense? What do you think about that?
It is because their offensive line is that much better.
Okay.
So they can do whatever they want because their offensive line is that good.
The offensive line probably.
Yeah. Well, sure. And then that's part of what makes Goff successful is his teammates, especially where it matters most for a quarterback. He's got a great offensive line, and Jameson Williams is finally going to be Jameson Williams. The Lions are going to be a lot better. Jared Goff's going to look better, but he's not going to really change his game. It's just that.
Oh, where'd you go? Where'd Tom go? Tom was on a roll. Is this me or is this Tom? Let me know in the chat if you can hear Tom. I think it's Tom. It looks to me like it's Tom. I hope or I don't hope it's Tom, but I hope that I'm not just being silly and talking to no one right now. Oh, I think it's Tom because Tom went away. Yeah, Tom froze. He was on a roll, but the the people were conspiring against him for telling us that telling us that the
Sorry.
Lions are something to look out for.
So sorry, Ashley.
Sometimes you get too hot, your takes are too good, and the football gods try to take you
They
down.
shut me down.
You're still in too
Stop
many
talking
gems.
so well on the Lions. Yeah, okay. Message received, over and out. Okay, so Jared Goff, I look at it in tiers. So there's a tier that I have, which is Jordan Love, Jared Goff, Brock Purdy. Those guys are in the same tier. And then it's who's good in one given week, who's good as far as who's going to develop. The thing where I think that Purdy is undervalued right now is that this is the first time that he's had a chance to develop his game in the offseason. I think he's going to come out of it a better player. And another year in the system that he's had, I think that he'll improve in his confidence level, in his ball placement. And hopefully he's been able to work on his mechanics to get a little more zip on the ball. If there's one thing I want to see from Purdy this year, I'm not talking about deep balls. I'm talking about throwing it faster, zipping it into limited windows in the middle of the field, in tight windows. That's where he needs to improve. And I think that he'll do that. Well, so my tiers. So tier 1 for me is Mahomes alone. Tier 2 is Allen, Burrow, Stafford. Tier 3 is Stroud, Jackson, Herbert. Tier 4 is Love, Goff, Purdy.
Okay. I like that. I think that's fair. I had mine more condensed, but in mine Purdy was in tier 3, but I had I had Mahomes, and then I had that second tier. I
had them as one tier. You group them together.
Yeah. I have like Burrow, Jackson, Allen, all in one tier, and then I have like one under that, and that has like Dak, Brock Purdy. Okay. I have all those guys in that set, and I even have Stafford in that one. So maybe I actually like the way
Stafford
you do
it higher
with a distinction. So that's fair. Yeah. Definitely. Now, really quickly going just to get through Chris Sims, he has 11 Trevor Lawrence. This makes no sense to me. Maybe I've heard the thing Trevor Lawrence is Matthew Stafford when he was on the Lions type of thing. Like maybe this is a receiver problem.
We haven't seen that.
But I haven't exactly. I feel like Trevor Lawrence has had some opportunity to make plays and has not shown the courageousness, the toughness, and ability that I've seen from Stafford. But I don't know. I know that a lot of people feel very highly about Rich Madrid, and Rich Madrid feels very highly about Trevor Lawrence. So it could be something I'm not seeing, but I think 11 is too high for him and what he's shown in the NFL so far.
But it's around where he should be. He should be in the middle of the rankings. He should be like, I have him at 13, 14. Okay. And that's about right. But 11, I think 11 is too high given that he hasn't proved that he's worth that.
Yeah, I agree. And then Chris Sims has Kirk Cousins at 12. I disagree with this.
Chris Sims isn't including playoffs, but then he says at the same time, Brock Purdy's Super Bowl is why he's low. I mean, be consistent.
That I agree. And then Corey says Trevor Lawrence looks the part. That's why he's 11.
It's all about the hair, Corey.
He definitely looks like the stereotypical.
Yeah, he's got the Thor look. Yeah, okay.
Yes. And then 13, Jordan Love, Green Bay Packers. And Chris Sims elaborated on this a little bit and said that if Jordan Love was the quarterback for the 49ers when they were in the Super Bowl, that the 49ers would be Super Bowl championships right now. I disagree. I think if Jordan Love had 8 unblocked rushers, that he also would not be able to make those passes. And within that explanation, Chris Sims multiple times talks about Kyle Shanahan and what an offensive genius he is. and that that system is so QB friendly. Now, obviously, he doesn't mention that that's the same system that Jordan Love also has under LaFleur. So that's one thing. Also, he said that Brock Purdy has the ability to throw a bad throw and then know that the next throw is going to be open because Kyle Shanahan is such a wizard, which I semi-agree with. But my, retort to that would be, if that guy is open, but Brock Purdy's getting hit, then,
Yeah.
So
Kyle Shanahan is a wizard. Yeah. Kyle is a wizard off of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
But you have to play behind the line of scrimmage, and that's why Brock did what he did in the Super Bowl. I don't think Jordan Love would have any more success than Brock did because he'd be running for his life. You might have had some place where he could have gone deep or done something, sure. But I don't think that there's anything that you can point to say that Jordan Love clearly would have won the Super Bowl. I don't buy that.
Yeah, and I like the Brock Purdy couldn't win it in the Super Bowl. Jordan Love would win it if he got to the Super Bowl, but not acknowledging that Jordan Love didn't get to the Super Bowl because of the game. Like he wasn't able to get into that situation because the thing that you're saying he could do in the Super Bowl, he could not do in the game right before that.
Yeah.
So a little.
And the other thing to factor in with Chris Sims is he's Kyle's best friend.
Yes,
and that shows.
I would encourage it if people have Twitter, and maybe I know that I've seen some people do it, so maybe I could figure out how to cut up some clips and add them to our show. The clip itself is too long to play the thing in entirety, but maybe I can try to see if I can cut up small bits of it, because Chris Sims multiple times when discussing the comparison between Jordan Love and Brock Purdy and having Love at 13, multiple times references Kyle Shanahan's genius and how much Brock Purdy benefits from that. Like I said, failing to acknowledge any offensive line issues and failing to acknowledge that LaFleur runs a very similar system. I just felt like it was very biased and very Super Bowl centric and very don't blame my friend. And, when I'm listening, I feel like I understand if my best friend Lacey was in hot water, I would also do this.
Yeah,
but it does not come off as unbiased. It does not come off as reasonable. If someone was to it's a bummer because he's talking with someone, but that person gives zero pushback. And I wish that they had someone who did, because I'd love for him to try to flesh out his argument more, because it really doesn't make any sense.
You need to pair him with an objective voice that challenges what he's concluding, because it doesn't hold up. You can't say, well, Kirk Cousins is better. What's Kirk Cousins done in the playoffs? Come on.
Brock Purdy gets dunked for what he's done in the Super Bowl, but Kirk Cousins doesn't get in trouble for throwing it behind the freaking yard line on the last play of the playoff game that he was trying to win. But that's fine. Okay, so moving off of Jordan Love, then number 14, lovely Aaron Rodgers, who's about to get his coach fired and not showing up to OTAs. I mean, no. Sorry.
Well,
maybe earlier in his career, but everything that we've seen, I think he has to prove that and maybe he will. But right now, judging them based on last year, which is what Chris Sims is mostly doing, I guess it's kind of super confusing because depending on who he's talking about, he'll bring in the entirety of their career, and other people he only talks about one game. But I don't know. Jordan,
it's the upside. The upside for Aaron Rodgers is top 7, really, if he's healthy and playing the way he can. But the issue is he still capable of that after all these injuries? I don't know. We'll see. But to rank him 14th now and put him above Brock, okay, I can get it based on arm talent and resume, and you can say, okay, he's better than Brock. All right, but let's see how that plays out this year, and specifically, let's see how that plays out in Week 1. But I don't like that Sims is basically picking his argument to suit one player to make the case for them. And it's okay for this player. For this player, it's playoffs. For this player, it's career. For this player, it's arm talent. Just no, dude. Be consistent.
There's no structure to his grading system. It's just
Right.
depending on.
It smacks of, I think Brock Purdy is 17th, and I'm just going to come up with arguments to force him there.
Yeah.
Okay. Dude.
So then after Aaron Rodgers, Baker Mayfield is 15. Once again, just doesn't make any sense when it comes to the criteria that he's grading these guys on. I will say, I think, depending on who you talk to, people can be too negative on Baker Mayfield. I know randomly, if my dad is watching, he's like always been like a Baker Mayfield apologist. Like even when he was coming off the Browns, he was like, he's not as bad. So I'm not saying
he played well for Tampa last year. I'll give him that.
He definitely did. And I'm excited to watch the Bucs next year. He, earned himself a payday with Tampa. I'm excited for him. Whether or not I would put him above Brock Purdy at this point, I personally wouldn't.
No.
But Chris Sims did. And then the only other guy, number 16 ahead of Brock Purdy, is Kyler Murray. Once again, a guy that if you go off pure talent, I could understand this. I think watching Kyler Murray can be very special and frustrating if you're a team going against him. This is why I just wish Chris Sims had criteria that he was grading these guys off of, because, there hasn't even been playoff runs for the Cardinals recently. So I don't know how you can critique one person for their Super Bowl performance and then not critique another person for not even getting to the playoffs. So that's my kind of opinions on Chris Sims. For people who don't know, then number 17 is Brock Purdy. So that's his full list.
Yeah,
now that we have
okay. Yeah, all I can say in response to 17th is watch the games this year, and you will not have Brock Purdy 17th for long.
I agree. And I think that's kind of where we're at with Brock Purdy right now, is like when it comes to, supporters versus haters. I don't know. Seems a little juvenile way of explaining it. But I think at this point, all that can happen with Brock Purdy is he continues to play at a, above average level, continues to win games, continues to execute Kyle Shanahan's system. I hope that Kyle Shanahan allows him to even go above his system a little bit. And I think that we're going to see a little bit more mobility this year. And hopefully at some point we see an improvement on the offensive line and some utilization of all of his weapons, that he gets, so much credit taken away from him because of how good the weapons are. But can he utilize them all right now? Not really. So if he can, it'll be even more explosive and be very interesting. The few games that you have seen the ball spread around and the offensive line hold up have been incredible. And even when you haven't seen the offensive line hold up, Brock Purdy's, at least statistically wise, has performed really well in those games. But obviously there's only so much you can do in that situation. So it'll be interesting. And then Chris Sims this is interesting. Chris Sims is like Kelly McGill's character in Top Gun. He saw genius in McCaverick's flying, but couldn't admit to it being exposed as liking him. Same reason Sims underranks Purdy. So yeah, just kind of saying like because he sees Kyle so highly, he can't give that credit to Brock Purdy. I agree.
He gives it to Kyle and not to Purdy.
Yeah. And definitely because there's a little bit of the criticism on Kyle this year, I think there's an even bigger pushback to try to clear Kyle's name by putting the blame on
Purdy. He's trying to elevate Kyle to protect him.
Yeah. And then Sims knows if he snubs Purdy, the faithful will come out with "keep my name out of your mouth." I don't know. I think he kind of did that. So
yeah,
I agree with Tom, and I think all you can do is watch the games this year, hope that Purdy, with an off season where he's actually healthy and practicing with the majority of his wide receivers, obviously not Brandon Ayuk, but you hope that he gets good connections with these guys and can keep up a similar level of play that he has statistically, and then maybe even eye test wise improve, which I don't see a reason why he couldn't with what he did coming off of, elbow surgery and not getting to practice this year.
Yeah.
I have high hopes. I'm also, realistic. I'm not saying Brock Purdy's, top 5 or something like that, but I definitely think that the way that he's being talked about this offseason is being a bit undersold, and that this level of talking wouldn't have really flied during the season because there was like games that were like you would say this and then you would see
there was a constant
Brock Purdy
reminder of
like
how
play
good he
one of these
was.
guys and you'd be like, this is obviously untrue. So
Right.
I think sometimes in the off season, when you get farther away from the actual games that are happening, you can make a little bit more extreme takes because there's not that like immediate repercussion of seeing him go against another defense and seeing an opposing quarterback going against the 49ers defense.
But, right. Brock would make his case every week. And part of the talk now is there's some people that say that Brock's not going to reach the level he did last year just because it was so good statistically. But stats aren't the only measure of success. I think that he's going to take more of a role as a leader. Yeah. And I think that he's going to develop more on his weaknesses where I expect that he'll make some mechanical tweaks to get more zip on the ball in tight windows. And I'll expect that he'll be smarter in his reads. I expect that he'll be more accurate. And I think he'll be probably have better judgment on when to run. He'll know the cues of reading the defense to see, I've got an opportunity here. Last year, as he started to run, he started to figure out when he could go. And I think that he's going to improve upon that this year.
I agree. I think that, like, even if he took a little bit of a dip statistically, which I think his statistics will still be good when talking about Kyle Shanahan's system, that's kind of where you can say that Kyle probably does have an influence. He's had a lot of quarterbacks that have done well statistically. But what I think the pushback should be is even when he's had quarterbacks do well statistically, no quarterback has looked as good as, and there is something too that I test, and I know that can be frustrating because it's one of those things that's hard to explain. But I don't think anyone felt how they feel about Brock Purdy, about a previous quarterback under Kyle Shanahan. So I definitely think that there can be some improvement there. Now we have a bunch of topics, but I think we'll save some of them for next week. But maybe we could end on just like very short, trailer pitch type thing. Father's Day is coming up on Sunday, and I thought it might be fun, Tom thought it might be fun to talk about our dads, maybe say a little bit, give a little bit of grace or talk about how our dads got us into sports, maybe even anything like that. Do you want to kick it off with your dad and that relationship?
Sure. Growing up, my dad was a Raider fan. He was a diehard Raider fan.
Oh.
I was the Niner guy. But
How did that happen?
Me being the dumb kid that I'm not going to do what everybody else does. I'm going to march to my own drummer kind of bit. And I like John Brody. So that's how far back I go. It's 1970. So way back when, the prehistoric era of the Niners. So I got caught into that. But Dad was great. He always introduced me to sports. The main thing that we did was go to track meets. That he took us as a family to the Olympic trials in 1972 to Eugene. And that's one of the fondest memories that I have is going to the trials with everybody. And then later in my life, Dad and I got a chance to go to the World Championships together. And that's something I really treasure. Is that we went to Helsinki, we went to Osaka, and had this wonderful time together. And just talking track, our favorite sport, and being there halfway around the world and saying, I can't believe we're here. And we just had so much fun. So he's just been a wonderful influence on my life. I still talk to him every week and just love him to death. And I know that you have a very special relationship with your dad too. And that's something that I love to see because I'm lucky enough to have had that in my life. And I know what a treasure that can be to have that.
It definitely, I love that you told that story. And I've always had a really close relationship with my dad. I felt like my dad and I almost had like our own little family within our larger family. Definitely a little bit like, especially as a kid, kind of feeling like, oh, my dad and I against the world type of thing. I don't know. Did you ever watch that Big Daddy? It's an Adam Sandler movie.
No.
It's a funny one where Adam Sandler takes care of a kid kind of badly, but it's a joking movie, but it's actually very heartwarming and sweet.
Nice.
And I watched all of Adam Sandler's movies with my dad. Probably too young, but loved them.
Yeah. Well,
And
they're doing a sequel to Happy.
oh,
They're
really?
going to shoot that pretty soon.
That's so interesting. Have you? This is side note, but have you watched Uncut Gems? I know that was like a shift for Adam Sandler into more of a serious character. I haven't watched it, but I've
No.
randomly seen a lot of like cut ups of Julia Fox, and she was in that movie, and now it's made me intrigued. But yeah, going to back to Father's Day, I have the most special relationship with my dad. I really, really value how much he cares about me, has supported me, given me stability in my life, structure in my life, given me love, and allowed me to kind of make mistakes, but then just really, it's really sweet to have someone like loves you unconditionally, um,
Yeah.
and that you can go to, and he's just the most thoughtful person. He, whatever he does, it's like second nature that he'll always think of me and whatever he's doing,
That's
and
great.
just has a really, really big heart. And I think it's funny, especially I feel like I know this month is also men's is it men's like loneliness awareness month or something? It's I know it's Pride Month, but it also is something like men's health something. And my dad was in the military, comes from a very military family where his
Yeah.
dad was in the military, all his brothers were in the military. And growing up, my dad was very strict and had that maybe like army military harshness in him. By the way, what is he always wants me to say this because I say army and then he tells me it's airborne, 82nd airborne. He always, I guess it's
That
very,
is an important distinction.
it's very specific, and he
Yeah.
always tells me that I should say it that way. But yeah, I mean, as young as I can be, I have little baby pictures of me and this blanket that we've always had on our couch growing up in my childhood home, 49ers blanket.
Great.
My dad's grandpa was a 49ers fan. He migrated here from Italy, or from Switzerland, sorry.
Mm.
They're Swiss Italian, I think is what they call it.
Okay, so they're on the border?
Yeah. But they came over here, and all the stories of my great grandpa is just he was like kind of this crazy old man. He was like semi-blind, and he would just be like driving when he shouldn't be driving and all this, but he had just a
Character.
love and fascination for the 49ers. And my dad has told stories
Cool.
about going to, driving to diners or whatever in San Francisco, watching the 49ers with him. And my dad had such an affinity for him that he picked up that fandom from his great grandpa or from his grandpa. And then, like I said, growing up, my dad was a big sports fan, and even not just watching sports, but and I think this is important, like regardless of gender or whatever that you have with your kid. Like my dad and I were always playing sports together. We were always very
Yeah.
active. When I was really little, whether it was just like going to parks and running around, but playing flag football or chase or whatever. My dad raised me to be very tough and fearless, and with a lot of things I was, fearful, and maybe he would, make fun of that a little bit and tease me. But yeah, so I definitely gained my 49ers fandom from him originally when I was a kid. And then I went off to college. And when I moved back closer, the 49ers games was something that I got a little bit more interested in. And I had always like watched them, but more as a casual fan. And it was something my dad and I loved to go for, like something I'd love about my dad. And a reason probably I have a podcast, so I can just talk about anything. Like obviously I'll talk on here about 49ers forever. But one of my favorite things to do with all of my best friends, the people that I connect with the most, is I can just yap and yap and yap. And something I'd love to do is go for a walk in the sunshine, go for a hike, whatever it is, be a little bit moving, doesn't have to be, intense, and just talk about anything that comes to our mind. And my dad, a
Yeah.
quality that I love about him, I was actually recently on a date, and I'll just like if I'm in an elevator, I'll make small talk with the person there, or I'll talk to the waitress. And the person I was on a date with complimented me on this. They were like, oh, like something I really like about you. I've seen this person for a while now. And they were like, something I really like about you is your ability to connect with other people and just talk to them. And it
Absolutely.
was such a special compliment to me because that's how I feel
Yeah.
about my dad. Whatever coffee stand
Well,
that we would go to,
and
whatever
both of
anything.
you, it's a reflection of who you both are,
Yes. And
individually and together, that you reinforce that in each other.
exactly. And so it made me feel so special because like immediately when I got the compliment, I thought of my dad, and I think that that is a
Yeah.
quality in my dad that I love. Like you go to the gym with my dad, you go to a grocery store, like just he's made friends there if he's been there before, and if he hasn't been there before, he's making friends there. He's such an enjoyable person to talk to, such a good storyteller. Even though he makes fun of her a little bit in a joking, fun way. His mom, she used to always tell stories, and we used to always talk about how much she exaggerated in her stories to make them more interesting. Um, and I really think he gets that quality from her because he can also tell amazing stories. And during 2020, after college, when I was around here, something that my dad would do would just tell me, we'd go for these walks because you had to be social distance from the majority of the people. So we'd kind of stay on our own, but want to be outside and get some fresh air. And he would tell me stories about, the history, whatever. My dad's always had an affinity for stuff like that. He loves Europe. So he'll tell me a lot about that. And something him and I really connected on was talking about the 49ers, talking about the
Yeah.
players, about the drama. We started listening to some 49er creators because that I feel like is when at least my awareness of like the YouTuber 49ers stuff
Hmm.
started happening. And we would just have such a fun time kind of debating back and forth. And I think something else that my dad instilled in me that he might hate a little bit is I have a little bit of a competitive drive and can be obsessed with something once I
Well,
get
but
intrigued about it. So my dad obviously knew more about football than me. And like I got obsessed and I was like, I'm going to learn all about this so that when I'm engaging in these conversations, I can feel like I'm like defending my take and,
yeah, yeah,
you know,
same level. Yeah.
exactly.
Well, but that competitiveness stems from when you were there, doing sports together.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
breeds a competitive nature? But I
Exactly.
love hearing all this. It's just, you had a wonderful father. You have a wonderful father,
Yes.
and it's great that he's a part of our chat here.
Yeah,
And he raised a wonderful kid,
he
and it's
did.
just,
So
it really does my heart good to see a relationship between a father and a daughter like that, because I have the father son, and I cherish it every day.
it's
It makes
so
a big difference in my life, in who I am, what I want to be, how I want to treat others. All of that stems from my parents. And I'm so lucky to still have my dad. And it means the world.
100%. But yeah, so I'm very, very lucky. I want to remind everyone to, call their dad, talk to their dad on Father's Day,
Yeah.
and obviously not just on Father's Day, but do that. And then just because it is on my mind because it happened yesterday, I also want to encourage anyone if they're struggling with anything from a physical sense and you feel like maybe your doctor isn't taking you seriously or anything, please make sure to go get that checked out. Try to advocate for yourself. If you feel sick or tired or frustrated, advocating for yourself alone, maybe ask a loved one to go with you to try to be that advocate for you. I sometimes feel like when people have been forced to kind of advocate for themselves so long, you can kind of give up on it a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is just because we're talking about Father's Day. Someone who also made a big impact in my life is my best friend's dad. Just my best friend's great. My dad, my best friend and I used to try to conspire to make our dads best friends because we're like, we're best friends and we both love our dads. She, similar to
Yeah.
me, this is probably something we bonded over in our families. She also lived with her dad solely and had a really strong relationship with her dad. And last year he passed away of colon cancer, and it was something that he had symptoms for a long time before getting diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. So please make sure to advocate for yourself. Another shout out to my dad.
Yeah.
I, have also really struggled with stomach symptoms. And last year when I needed some tests, and I felt like the doctors weren't taking me seriously. My dad came with me to my doctor's appointment. I'm in my later 20s, and I know some people maybe are like, oh, that's embarrassing, but I felt like people weren't taking me
No,
seriously, and that's
no.
another reason that
You
my
had
dad
to
is
do that. Yeah.
awesome. He, I was telling him about it, and he was like, I want to come with you. I want to try to make sure they
Yeah.
take this seriously, and because of that, I was ordered a colonoscopy, and I still don't have everything
Cool.
taken care of, but at least it got the process moving. So I know I'm kind of adding two things in here, but one, be very grateful for your dads. Tell them that you're grateful. And then two, just in remembrance, since we're talking about fathers, I just wanted to give a shout out to my best friend Lacey, to my dad, who we actually ended up celebrating Christmases with Lacey and her dad later on,
Oh, nice.
before his end of life. So he mattered a lot to not only Lacey, but to me. And then because he mattered to me, he mattered to my dad, because my dad cares so much about me. So please make sure to check on your dads and to take any medical things seriously. I just wanted to say I love you, Daddy, my daddy, and then I wanted to say I love you to my best friend Lacey. She doesn't always watch my streams, but sometimes she does because she tries to support me. And so I wanted to say I miss you so much, Jim, and I'm so grateful that I still have my dad around because he's just the best thing in my life. And I'm grateful for you, Tom, because I think these shows are so fun, and you're such a genuine person, and
Well,
maybe
thanks,
you got that
Ashley.
from your dad.
Well,
I can
so are
really
you. Well, I did.
feel it. Yeah.
But it's been a joy to be with you and to get to know you. And I love that your dad shared his love of the Niners with you, and
Me
then
too.
you competed with him to know more than he does.
Yes.
I love
And
that. I think that's great. But
to end this off,
it's
Jose,
just, yeah.
I'm my dad and I are gonna try to go to one or two games this
Oh, great.
season coming up. So that'll be a
And
fun
that'll
thing
be
that
your first
hopefully
time at Levi's?
we can do. Yeah, haven't been to Levi's. My
Okay.
dad's told me about Candlestick before. And because he's
Yeah.
a little bit of an older fan, he has like a allegiance to that, but we're definitely gonna have
Oh,
some
sure.
fun.
Well, I was a
And
Niner fan when they were playing at Kezar. That's how prehistoric I am.
my dad, I
Go
mean, just
way
another,
back.
you
But
know
yeah,
what's
and then I was in the
hilarious?
press
Like,
box at Candlestick, so I wasn't in the stands that often.
yeah,
But yeah, it was fun.
yeah, and just
But I love this. But just thank you very much, Ashley. This
absolutely. And
it means
literally
so
when you
much
said that,
to get to know you and to share a love for the Niners and to celebrate our fathers and the role that they played in both of us being good people. And
100%. I
that's what you can ask for most from your dad, is that you become a good person with a good heart, and that shows in everything you do.
I really appreciate it. I want to call out to, right before I end it, to a memory, since you mentioned Kezar. My dad wanted to show me that because obviously I wasn't born during that time, and now he goes, because we live in, or he, I don't know if you're supposed to say this. He lives in Northern California, so he goes to the Veteran Hospital in Santa Rosa now. But
Oh, okay.
last year and the last couple of years, the Santa Rosa Hospital didn't exist, so he went into San Francisco. And so a special thing that he and I would do on those days, because he usually had morning appointments, was we would drive down to the city together, and we'd talk the whole car ride. He'd have his doctor's appointment. We'd walk around there. Usually we would walk around, I think it's called Lines End, which is next to the Veterans Hospital on that side of the Bay Area. But one of the times we drove down, walked around Kezar Stadium, ended
It's
up
cool.
getting food out there, and just like I
Mm-hmm.
said, calling back to my favorite thing to do with my dad is literally anywhere we are, go for walks, look at things, and talk about them. And we walked all
Yeah.
around Kezar, and he told me about the hill. He showed me the hill that was infamous running up and down it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, everyone have a great rest of your week and a good weekend celebrating your dads and anything else you are celebrating. And thank you guys so much. Have a great one. Make sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be going live tomorrow with Marco. And then make sure to follow Tom Jensen on Twitter, also NinerCast, to keep up with all of his articles. So yeah. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day. Bye.